Hello, here's my report on our home's solar PV and Powerwall performance for April 2020. I'll use the same graphs that were introduced in my February report, plus the graph showing output from the 8.5-year-old Solar Southwest PV array over the years. I gave some details of the system in the introduction video. Please have a look at those first two episodes for more information if you haven't seen them yet. I'll also mention another quirk of the Tesla app that I noticed this month and wonder if others have experienced the same aberration. Here's the first graph, showing the daily input of energy from the grid and from the two solar arrays, with the figures coming from daily readings of the meters. The solar yellow and orange colours now dominate the graph. The grid contributions are in a week-on, week-off pattern, and this is because the American tenant, who lives in the annex above the garage, has had his working pattern changed during this unusual time. He now does a week at work with long working days, and then has a week off when he goes to be with his family. That's in this country, not in America. It's still cool enough for one of the storage heaters to have to be on when he's in residence. The eagle-eyed would have spotted that, unlike in the previous 2 months, the old Southwest solar array has produced more in April than the new Southeast array. On a flatter roof, facing higher into the sky, the Southwest array can now harvest more energy as the sun gets higher, and I expect to see the difference in the production of the two arrays increase in May and June. In fact, this was the best April for the Southwest array since its installation in 2011, with its production of 468 kilowatt hours, just passing the previous high of 459 in 2015, despite the fizzling out in the last few days of the month. The two arrays together produced 877 kilowatt hours, which was 78% of the energy coming in, up from 59.1% in March. It was well over 80% at some times earlier in the month. 242 units of off-peak grid energy were imported to feed the storage heater, and only 5 units of peak grid energy were imported, with the meter moving up about 0.1 on most days. We continue to try and use up all our solar production, but still managed to export 57 kilowatt hours to the grid, which was 6.5% of the month's solar production. The 2 electric heaters were still being used in the house to reduce the burning of heating oil to almost zero until one of the heaters ceased working halfway through the month. April is the time of year when, weather permitting, we get our small swimming pool cleaned up ready for the summer, so an 800-watt circulation pump is now running for around 15 hours per day. It would have been nice to heat the pool water, but the compressor in the air-sourced heat pump has seized, and we are waiting for that to be replaced. That would have been an additional 2 kilowatt load at this time of year when the pump is running. This second graph shows where the energy being used in the property came from, as reported by the Tesla app, which suggests that 24% of our electrical energy came from the grid. Early in the month, I decided to switch the gateway from cost-saving mode to self-power mode. This decision was made due to the excellent solar forecast and also being able to have the storage heater in the annex switched off for the week. These two factors combined to mean that the Powerwall didn't have to be topped up with grid energy during the off-peak hours, except on a few occasions when a quick boost was given by temporarily raising the backup reserve percentage before 8 AM to see the system through some murky peak time hours. In the summary figures on the right, the percentage of energy coming back out of the Powerwall was 91.4%. Slightly better for efficiency than in March. Here's this month's observation about strange behaviour within the Tesla app. Having switched mode to self-power, I no longer had peak and off-peak figures to record, so the addition error discussed last month no longer applied. However, partway through the month, I looked back at the figures in the app for a few days previous. On the morning of April the 13th, when recording figures for April the 12th, I noticed that some of the figures for April the 10th had changed from what I had recorded a couple of days earlier. I didn't take screenshots at the time, so screenshots of the changes seen in the figures for Saturday the 25th of April are being shown. I first noticed the change in the performance section, where the solar percentage contribution to self-power had reduced and the Powerwall contribution had gone up, reflecting changes to the underlying energy figures. I dutifully changed all the figures in my spreadsheet and looked back to the days before that, but no other changes needed to be made. The next day I looked again, and the figures were all back to what I had originally recorded. This same behaviour continued throughout the month, with figures for 3 days before present changing and then changing back a day later. Why on earth is this happening? Does anyone else have the same behaviour going on in their Tesla app? Does anyone have an explanation? I haven't yet looked at different times of day to see when the figures changed and when they change back. Retired life is too busy for that. Might it be something to do with the time difference between UK and Tesla HQ in defining the start and end of each day? Who knows? The third graph shows the self-power performance, which is the proportion of energy coming direct from solar or from the Powerwall. With a change to self-power mode, I am left with only a complete graph for all day, as the app no longer has peak and off-peak data. Self-power obviously follows the week-on, week-off pattern of the previous graphs. The overall self-power percentage for the month was calculated by the Tesla app to be 78%, with 48% coming direct from solar. As mentioned earlier, compared to previous years, this April was right at the top for the solar southwest generation. The arithmetic mean for April now stands at just over 388 kilowatt hours, pulled down by the dreadful 2018 figure of just 251. This composite bar chart showing performance across the years suggests that 2020 has now had the best start, and we hope it doesn't fizzle out in the summer in the same way as last year. That's it for this episode. I'll leave you with the energy usage graphs produced by the Tesla app for each day of April and hope to see you again next month.